about water, I remember when I first heard about you and heard you speaking, was on a podcast of Rituals, and you were talking about water. And I really remember it blew my mind, because it was like, really, is so much information about water. It's not, the usual drink your 8 glasses of whatever water and you'll be fine, just stay hydrated.
Right.
It's a huge thing behind it.
Yeah, there's a lot going on with water, and it's a biological conversation. I mean, there's very specific things that the body's involved in biologically. I mean, you have 90% of your brain and your central nervous system is water. Every cell is getting rid of toxins via water, through water. So it's very, from a macro perspective, it's doing a lot of heavy lifting, and it's also a conductor. So we are 70 trillion cells needing to conduct themselves through electricity. If you don't have water, if you don't have electrolytes in that water, if you don't have active living water, then you're unable to communicate on a cellular level. And if your cells are not doing well, eventually that will show up to the big picture. That big picture is you, and then you will suffer. The challenge is that people won't know what that is because it's so far down the line, and people are walking around. I mean, here in America, nearly 10% of all Americans are not even picking up an ounce of water a day. So you're running around with this dehydrated state with, the number one cause of dehydration is absolutely energy, or lack of energy. So fatigue. So imagine you're not drinking enough water, you wake up the next day, you do what? You turn on your coffee machine, you stimulate yourself, which is then affecting your adrenals, and you're trying to you have a family, you're going to work, you're stressed out, you're, trying to survive, and yet you're putting yourself under chronic stress just by not having the proper water. Because like you said earlier, you can drink your 8 ounces of water, but that doesn't mean much, because there's many properties of water that really, if you really talk about it, it's pretty science fiction.
Because I've seen how you're preparing your water.
Yeah. It's
not like you're buying your water, or you're just, drinking from the tap, or filtered, or no, you're preparing it.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's almost like, obviously, if you can drink living water, pure living water from nature in a spring, that's
the best.
Yeah, because the planet has prepared it. The rocks have chelated it with minerals, the sun and the ultraviolet rays, the energy, the real electrical energy, because we're sitting on a battery just like our cells are. The planet is a battery of a plasma reactor surrounded by water. Sounds very similar to an ATP part of the molecule of a reactor, creating energy in our cells, surrounded by water. The planet is a representation of cell. So if we don't have an energetic understanding of our water, or at least getting it, then our body needs to generate energy of the water we're taking in, and the body needs to give it electrolytes in order to then use it. So it's taxing. So you kind of, in this modern day world, you kind of have to break water down if you're not getting it from a living source, and then build it back up again. And the best and easiest thing, without getting soaked, because water, you can get into quantum mechanics, you can get into severe chemistry, you can get into the memory of water. You guys actually met me, you and your husband, at the Bulgarian water conference. And I was there for 4 days listening to the top researchers in the world. But the very basic thing is I give people is really, if you're in a city, if you're in a town and you can't go forage living water, strip it down, distill it, reverse osmosis, pull out the chemicals and the fluorides and the chlorines. And
But you need the specific machine for that, or
yeah,
how do you do that?
yeah, a little distiller you can buy for $100.
So a distiller.
Right,
Okay.
so it distills, it evaporates the water, so the chemicals can't evaporate with it. It recondenses, and so now you have something with a low TDS, or total dissolved solids, very low. So there's an emptiness to the water, but it's a balanced pH. All you have to do then, never drink that on its own. Your body will strip your body of other minerals. So all you need to do is add Himalayan crystal salt. Sea salt's okay. I prefer Himalayan crystal salt.
Why?
Well, because of contamination.
Yeah. From the sea.
From the sea,
Yeah.
there's some consumer reports have done a lot of testing where they're seeing microplastics in a lot of the sea salts.
Yeah.
And then finding a Himalayan crystal company who's doing proper mining of the salt. So adding that, a pinch of that in your glass of water, creates now a water that's closer to what your body can receive. And that salt is really important, and all those other 80 electrolytes are important to open up the cell to bring in and out of the water. So it brings energy, it detoxes the cell, so water is a detoxer of magnitude. So people talk about detoxing all the time. Okay, well, drink a half an ounce of water per pound of body weight. I don't know what it's like. I don't know what it is in kilos.
I don't know either. So.
But we can do that calculation.
We can do it.
So half an ounce of water per pound of body weight. And just by doing that alone, you'll start cleansing. Your skin will start illuminating more. Your eyesight will improve. Very basic and powerful thing people can do.
Yeah. Well, that's super interesting. Not so easy to do, but
well, it is very, water is very complex.
It's also about the habit, you know.
Yeah.
You really need to start integrating these healthy habits. If you get this information and you start putting it into your lifestyle, then you will just get used to it.
Yeah, and then and the thing is, you start feeling better because of it, and then that's the extra motivation. So there's a little moment, like you said, of okay, if I get a distiller, it distills the water, add a pinch of salt. Now I have a water that's exponentially better than what I was doing, and it's not adding a toxic, stressful load to my body. And now, cool, I'm in a habit. In a week, I'm not even thinking about it, and I'm feeling better.
So give me 5 superfoods that we should all eat, and they're not too exotic. I mean, they're really easy to find now in the grocery store, and also on a okay budget. Yeah,
well, the first kind of caveat to that is I'm not the authority over anybody. These are my opinions. And people nowadays, for many reasons, what we probably can't get into, have food sensitivities and food allergies. So that being said,
obviously.
Some of those, some easy ones are, turmeric. That's the
number one, turmeric.
I can never choose a favorite superfood or herb, but
I would say for me it's turmeric,
but
and I eat it every day.
Yeah, well, that's a very smart thing to do because there's many compounds in there, and the one that's known the most is curcumin. That is an active compound, highly studied in turmeric, that you can definitely go out and buy just a standardized curcumin.
And is that better?
It just depends on the application. So the application normally for that is directed at inflammation.
Okay.
So, for example, for me, if I have inflammation or I'm trying to recover from something or performance or whatever, I will reach towards the botanical pharmacy before I would even. Well, I haven't taken a drug of any kind in 40 years, but maybe not 40 years, maybe 35 years. So I will reach there. So if I have that inflammation, yes, maybe if I really acutely need to recover from something where I have maybe something injury or a endurance, so curcumin might be a good, but as an overall, like you're doing, turmeric is an interesting thing because sometimes botanicals, because they sometimes have their own defenses, you need to cycle them. And turmeric isn't one of those. Turmeric is one that you actually can consume every day, and we haven't found any place where there's a reaction to the body from a general perspective. You also have things like turmerones within turmeric, and this is really interesting because some of the research is showing that this really supports the neurology, so the brain, and it supports new cell growth. So when you're in a world where we have chemical sensitivities, we have Alzheimer's and dementia at a ridiculous all-time high, and maybe within the next few years where 1 in 4 people are getting Alzheimer's and dementia, these types of compounds are absolutely crucial at this particular time in our lives to consume daily. So an anti-inflammatory, which at the root of all chronic disease is inflammation.
Yeah.
So taking turmeric from that chronic perspective every day, helping the chronic problems. And then from a brain perspective, these two top reasons to support the brain, the neurology, the functionality of the brain.
And that part, do you get it from fresh turmeric, or do you
Yes.
need to go to a... Okay.
Yeah, you can.
Okay, so you can...
Both of those compounds do show up in organic and powdered and stuff. Curcumin is naturally in a higher concentration, but turmerones are there too.
And do you need to eat black pepper together with your turmeric to make it bioavailable?
Yes, it's a good. It's a good
it's
idea.
It's not just a myth.
No, there's and it doesn't just work for turmeric. So pepper or pepperine, the active compounds, actually is an accelerator and opens up some pathways metabolically for the in this case the curcumin and the turmerones and the other 300 compounds that are in the turmeric to assimilate better. And also people like percentages by nearly 2,000%. So if you're taking something just on its own, you're getting a certain percent. If you're taking it with pepper, a little dash of pepper, it's increasing by 2,000% the bioavailability. Yeah, so it's a really good. So whenever you're playing around with turmeric,
I put it in my smoothie.
Yeah.
I just put black pepper in my smoothie.
Yeah.
Whatever.
And there's concentrations you can get by it too, that it doesn't have to be all pepper, you know.
Okay, so we have turmeric.
Turmeric. Okay, so then, you know, you leaning into the medicinal mushroom world, chaga mushroom, something that's been used in almost every major culture, from traditional Chinese medicine to all the Nordic lands, to even North America and Canada. Chaga mushroom is kind of the king of all mushrooms. And really the couple basic things. Again, these things have so many medicinal qualities to it, but chaga is one of those things. It's off of birch trees, and it's really one of the highest antioxidant foods you can consume. So doing that, and through aging, is oxidative stress, and just a natural part of degradation over time. Our bodies lose the battle between staying vital and cell death, and that buildup of free radicals really is what causes us pain and suffering. And if you can consume something, chaga is another one where it's safe to do every day.
Every day.
So you can get.
How do you get it?
There's great companies now.
Four Sigmatic.
Four Sigmatic.
I tried that one. That's the only one.
Yeah, so Tero, he's a Finnish.
Finnish, yeah, he's from Finland.
So it comes from, and I might get this wrong, but over 6, 7, 8 generations of farming. I got to hang out with them, really understand, because again, quality, we talked a little bit about that, super important.
Yeah.
They're doing an amazing job of how to grow chaga mushrooms naturally without losing the natural growth of them, and because sometimes you can't expand these medicinal plants to the population. But chaga is fantastic, and chaga is very protective with melanin reactions in the skin. So there's some evidence supporting that potentially increasing its ability to convert vitamin D, and vitamin D is around the immune system, and vitamin D is really important, but also protective with the skin. People are afraid of the sun and skin cancers and all that.
They get sunspots.
Yeah, so this is a really cool thing of chaga, and again, many other benefits, but something that you can consume every day. And then you have things like, chia seeds.
Yeah,
chia seeds are
that
fantastic.
everyone knows about it.
Yeah, but it's it's something, it's solid. It's soluble and insoluble fiber. Most people are lacking fiber, and that supports the digestion and also helps conversion of carbohydrates and mitigates bad cholesterol. It's very easy to prepare. You can put it in dry form. It's got a high hydrophilic property, so you can add water to it. It might be better for people's digestion. Add water, let it get gel-like, add a couple tablespoons. It doesn't taste like much, so you can really mix it with a lot of stuff. That's a wonderful thing. And then you have things like moringa. You heard of moringa?
I heard about it.
Yeah, it's tricky.
I've seen it on the shelves.
Yeah.
But I also heard you talking about moringa. So then I didn't buy it anymore because I didn't know. Is that a good moringa? Is it worth?
Moringa, let's talk about moringa in terms of, moringa is one of the most powerful micronutrient plants in the world.
Is it a plant?
Yeah, it's a leaf.
It's a leaf.
So it's actually a tree, and it gifts a lot of things. The bark is medicinal, the seeds are medicinal.
So you can use everything.
There's a lot, but the leaf is usually the thing that's known. Chlorophyll, 35 antioxidants, super high in vitamin C, vitamin A, vitamin E, and complete proteins. This is really, and in Africa where I've studied it as well, they call it the never die tree. So you eat it and it never dies. You never die. So a longevity plant that and they also call it the vitamin tree because it gifts so much in a poor area. It's kind of astonishing. The problem that I've always spoken about, I've done experimental batches here in the States. I kind of ran out of my ability to have enough bandwidth to continue, but I worked with the Navajo Nation a little bit, and I proved to myself and some of the industry that you can grow it and grow it well and have high nutrient value while you're drying it. The problem with most of it on the market is that people flood the market, but with very poor understanding of how to grow it and then how to preserve it after you pick it. And that's where most of the nutrients get wiped out. And then one very common one, but it's worth highlighting, and that is simply a blueberry. Now, if you can get them in the wild, they're exponentially more antioxidants and compounds concentrated in a wild blueberry. The main thing, not to mention the antioxidant, but there's a very, very cool thing. I've started to do research with a group. It's one of the top stem cell researchers of what's called a pluripotent or totipotent stem cell, and that's by definition it's a stem cell in our body that can turn itself into any tissue or any organ. So it's a regenerative cell that can program our cells to really heal. The cool thing about the research is that it showed that blueberries, there's some other ones too, but blueberries, if you consume a cup of blueberries every day for 30 days, will naturally, endogenously increase these totipotent stem cells, your own stem cells, by 6 times. So if you consume in your smoothie a cup of blueberries every day, it will turn on a healing capacity by over 6 times in your body. So it's that blows me away all the time, because we're here and we're very close to like some poisonous plants. Like there's poison.
You showed it to me before.
Yeah, so there's a poison oak, which is similar to poison ivy. That right there, if you just brush it, your skin will itch and boil and you want to pull it off. The point to that is plants are powerful. It's unbelievable, the medicinal side of plants. But obviously plants can, you know, most of the mushrooms on the world can actually kill you than actually help you. So, but the point is that this plant, if we just brush up on it, will absolutely bring us to our knees in pain. So can imagine then on the flip side of that, we've mentioned some of the greats. We've mentioned chaga, been used for tens of thousands of years. Turmeric, same thing. These plants have been used for a particular reason. They're powerful. Yes, they're powerful in their healing potential. So you don't have to be a nutritionist. But one of my teachers always told me, if you observe nature and also observe indigenous people with nature, that information that has been passed on, then you're going to be exponentially further along than people relying on a laboratory produced healthcare system that is doing virtually nothing to generate health in the body, but more of a reactive space of something that is already breaking down, not addressing the fundamental reasons why the body's breaking down. So that's why I revere, I honor, I respect plants, why I've made a career around it, why I'm absolutely blown away and infinitely curious about it, because I can never know it all, but I can always be humbled and come into it as a student and teach a little bit of what I've learned and pass it along. And that to me is just a life worth living, so that other people can benefit from it.
Back to nature.
100%.